Hello, hello, hello. It is Moscow Mitch Monday. We are your Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. Thank you so much for joining us here on the internet. We know you've got lots of websites to choose from, and we're glad that you've chosen this one. But this is our weekly digital demonstration against Mitch McConnell. It's a very, very exciting live stream. Maybe even an additional very, 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 very exciting live stream this week. We have our standard run of show. We've got our Mitch in the News with some great, interesting stories. We got Doug following Mitch's dark, dark, dark money. And we're going to be joined by author and former speechwriter for President Obama, David Litt. We'll discuss how Mitch threatens our democracy. I've also got some updates on our 5K for KY campaign, our plans for future in-person protests. Whew, there's just a lot going on, but that's good because we just have 64 days until November 3rd, until this election is over, and we have got a lot of work to do to retire Mitch. We have very exciting. We've got some incentives right now to help encourage you to make a donation to help fund that work. So the plans and the programs that are all fueled by you. We have an anonymous donor who's put up a $500 challenge donation. So between now and our next live show, which will be Monday, September 14th, so 2 weeks, if we get $500 in individual contributions, that support will be doubled. So please go to ActBlue right now, make a secure contribution. You can do the $500 all at once if you like, or you can make us work for it. We'll get the smaller contributions as well. We're not like Mitch. I know we have a lot of folks maxing out with $2,500 contributions, but the $50, $5, $10, whatever it is, it all adds up and it all helps us build that bigger, more powerful megaphone to tell the truth about Mitch's horrible agenda and how it hurts our Commonwealth. So as we get started, we'll do what we do every week. So we got some great co-hosts. They're going to introduce themselves to you, let you know where they are coming from and what their protest sign says today. And as we are telling you what our protest sign says, we need you to tell us. You need to add that in the comments right now, where you are, what your protest sign says. If we're just telling you, I feel like it's not equitable, right? Don't be the guy that shows up at the protest without a sign. That's awkward. Don't want to be awkward. All right, so I'm Aaron. I'm coming at you from Childsburg, a fine little subdivision in Lexington, and this is my sign. This is what my sign says today. Where is Mitch? Remember in November. Who's next?
I'll go next.
Awesome.
It's me, Kimberly Cecil Jones. How are you, Mr. Aaron, today?
Very well, thank you.
Well, my sign says today, I have an imaginary sign right here, but it's my sign every week. Do you know what it is?
Money.
I think you're going to tell us.
Mm-hmm. Mitch better have my money. Mitch better have my money. Okay? He doesn't bring any money back to Kentucky, so there we go. Hashtag awesome. Mitch better have my money.
Awesome. And how are you doing tonight, Kimberly?
I'm doing good. I mean, I was feeling kind of down, but now that I'm with you guys, I'm revved up and ready to go. My favorite subject, talking about Mitch McConnell.
Woo. We're so glad that you're here with us. Thank you so much, Kimberly. All right. Nate Dogg.
That leaves me, Nate Dogg. Hey, folks, this is Nate Orshan coming live from Kit's in my lovely home here in South Frankfort, Kentucky. And tonight, I think my sign would sound a little bit like, hey, Mitch, you ain't nothing but a swamp turtle crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a swamp turtle lying all the time. Well, you don't help Kentucky and you ain't no friend of mine.
So pretty sure we've got Nate's next Mitch song all queued up. Clearly, you just did about a third of it right then and there. So when you put that on a sign, Nate, do you put the little music notes next to it?
Yeah, that's to help the people who can read music, definitely.
and it's accurate. You actually write it accurately.
Oh yeah. Oh, darn it, that's not an eighth note. I have to start over again. Honey, where's the whiteout?
Yeah. All right. So, hey, we're in Mitch in the News, folks, already right there in the Mitch and in the news. And there's plenty of it because the guy is always in the news. Each week we've got new stories about this guy and what he is doing. So, and the first one, I believe, is coming to us from Nate, and you just heard a teaser.
That's right. So apparently there's been a little amount of social media hubbub, and predictably some McConnell camp pushback about a new Amy McGrath ad called Swamp Turtle, which is also now my new favorite band name. I mean, come on, Kentucky, who wants to start a band called Swamp Turtle? But I digress. So as Morgan Watkins wrote in the Louisville Courier-Journal this past Thursday, August 27th, quote, "It's Swamp Turtle starring Mitch McConnell. A voiceover announces as the ad begins, and a cartoon image of a turtle that features the Kentucky senator's head appears on screen." This is still part of the quote coming up. The 30-second ad sticks to animation throughout its runtime and showcases a hypothetical press conference where reporters wearing face masks quiz McConnell, who's still depicted as a turtle. Okay, so Mitch's office and some other high-level Republicans are wagging their fingers at this new ad, but I'm not going to go through any of their talking points. I will, however, offer a few of my own. Number one, there were no lies detected in that Swamp Turtle ad. The coal miners with black lung disease really did take a 10-hour bus ride to see Mitch and try to get them some help, and he really did give them like a minute of his time. Number two, it's almost a foregone conclusion that Mitch's voting demographic is older. So why shouldn't the McGrath campaign try to appeal to newer generations who are much more friendly to cartoons and who sometimes don't tend to vote as much as older folks? Oh, and there goes my phone. Wouldn't you know it? It's always something live. As Bugs Bunny used to say, yeah, what's all the hubbub, bub? Number three, Mitch is the original dirty ad maker. For example, that hound dog ad he used in 1984 against Senator D. Huddleston, that's now held up as this classic example of a fairly dirty but pretty effective TV ad. So it turns out a hound dog can help a swamp turtle once in a while. But so the question now is, where's Mark Murphy when you need him to draw a picture of a swamp turtle wearing that infamous furry Russian hat? For Moscow Mitch Monday, I'm Nate Orshan.
That is fantastic. Yeah, I've seen that ad, and it is, yeah, it's kind of clever. It's kind of funny. And I always like a good cartoon. I'm not gonna turn off a cartoon. All right, next story is coming to us from Kimberly, Cecil Jones.
Well, what I have today is McConnell rips McGrath and other Democrats at the campaign forum today. That was the Kentucky Farm Bureau forum today. Oh, I got it from the Associated Press, so you know it's legit. And also in reading this article and looking at a little bit of the forum today, which bored me absolutely to tears because I hate listening to liars. I just want to put that out there. But let me give you just a little bit of overview about what happened today. Well, Kentucky Farm Bureau had this great forum. I don't know what happened to Amy McGrath today. She was invited. She did not attend. And maybe she thought that it wasn't in her best interest today. Who wants to be around a swamp turtle, right? And also, Mitch McConnell, which is the majority leader, he is seeking his 7th term. And he needs to go. And also the whole time, all he did talked minimally about the things that he plans to do for Kentucky, but spent the majority of his time talking about all of the Democratic opponents, especially ripping into our girl, Amy McGrath. Also, McConnell talked about judges have nothing to do with the political process, although he has been the ringleader of the swamp of bringing in judges that possibly won't have anything for us. Also, in addition to tearing into his political opponents and talking about judges, and let me quote you, he said that these judges share a similar characteristic, a belief that the job of a judge is to actually follow the law and not act like a legislator. Is that really true? No, it is not. Lies, lies, lies. I thought to myself, maybe I didn't see correctly, but he was lying so much that his pants were basically on fire. Also, he said into this particular forum today that he had the floor all by himself. He also wanted to skip around how he was instrumental in diminishing a lot of the exports that come from our country, especially right here in Kentucky. Because of that, it was including the bourbon companies. And you know, guys, that if it does not come from Kentucky, I'm talking about bourbon, it's not real bourbon. So he did affect the economy and also some farm products that we also have. Also, in addition to that, he said this, let me quote to you. There are a lot of people in the country who believe that it's a loser to even be included in all of this, in tariffs and the exports and things of that nature. Well, I'm saying this right now. Mitch McConnell is for big money, big for himself, big for the cronies, and also bringing up all throughout the forum about how much the GOP has done for our country. I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, you know what happens to liars.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope. I mean, no, it's amazing how just a steady stream of falsehoods, issue forth from that guy on the campaign trail. But, I can understand why Amy didn't want to show up for that Farm Bureau forum. They've proven themselves not to be an honest broker. They have a side and they push that agenda. And so, it's not like showing up a KET where you're going to get a fair shot. So yeah, good story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us, Kimberly. So speaking of a steady stream of lies, the RNC was last week putting forward their ridiculous narrative that only Trump can save us from the reality we're currently living, created by Donald Trump. How does that work? Only Trump can save you from what I've created that you're living through right now and is a hellscape. Anyway, that was a narrative that was not really challenged there during the RNC. What we did know is that there are a lot of Kentucky voices that were in attendance. We had cancel culture victim and cultural warrior, now Mitch minion, Nick Sandmann. I believe that we actually have a clip of Nick Sandmann right now that I'd like to share.
In 2019, I attended the March for Life in Washington, D.C., where I demonstrated in defense of the unborn. Later that day, I bought a Make America Great Again hat because our president, Donald Trump, has distinguished himself as one of the most pro-life presidents in the history of our country.
So that is Nick Sandmann standing, I think, actually at the Lincoln Memorial where that famous altercation took place. He's, of course, hailed as a cultural warrior and victor because he sued CNN and for some undisclosed got some undisclosed settlement. But he has, of course, now been hired as an intern or campaign staff for Mitch McConnell. So, of course, that's what we need is more smug, smart-ass white kids. Of course, that's the GOP, right? So they know their audience. We also had the Mitch minion, the defender of your freedom to get COVID, Dan Cameron, who said Breonna's name, but made no mention of her murderers. Generally had one of the better received and unifying speeches of the night, which of course is a incredibly low bar. Really, you could not set the bar lower. But we do have a clip of his speech as well.
Sadly, there are some who don't believe in this wisdom or in the better angels of our shared American history as they tear down the statues of people like Ulysses S. Grant, Frederick Douglass, and even Mr. Lincoln himself. Even as anarchists mindlessly tear up American cities while attacking police and innocent bystanders.
So yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that list of statues that he just mentioned there. I cannot vouch for the accuracy of that. But hey, it's the RNC. Why be accurate? Speaking of Kentucky voices, Rand Paul was there. He then proceeded to claim an impressive degree of victimhood when BLM protesters yelled at him to say Breonna Taylor's name as he left the White House. He said he thinks they were paid protesters and would have gotten him and his wife on the ground, either killing them or beating them unconscious if the police had not been there. So this is what he's saying to people, right? Saying it with a straight face. He said it on Fox News today. After watching that video, all I can say is I am pretty sure Rand Paul has never been to a Metallica concert. I have definitely felt more fear of my life, really at a state fair than the video I saw of the scrum of him leaving the White House. It's like very, very ridiculous. The man needs to be far more afraid of his neighbor than of those protesters. But yeah, the big dog did show up. The Grim Reaper was in fact there. He didn't show up in person. He did a pre-recorded and actually quite short video. But despite its not very long span, he crammed a lot of garbage in there. And actually, we do have a clip of that.
They want to tell you when you can go to work, when your kids can go to school. They want to tax your job out of existence and then send you a government check for unemployment. They want to tell you what kind of car you can drive, what sources of information are credible, and even how many hamburgers you can eat. They want to defund the police and take away your Second Amendment rights.
So that is quite a statement. Hamburgers, people. I don't know who is the hamburger police, but they are out there and they are watching you, and they're going to tell you what kind of car you can drive drive up to get your hamburger, your socialistly, allocated one hamburger per month, I'm sure, is the way that's going to work when the socialists get control. Good God. So, he made a few statements. Obviously, he said that Democrats want to defund the police. He said that they want free health care for illegal immigrants, in addition to the garbage about the hamburgers. Nobody fact-checked him on the hamburgers because I think everyone's just like, what? Wait, what? But that first claim about defunding the police, absolutely misleading. The second one about free health care for illegal immigrants, absolutely false. Well, clearly there is a message about defunding the police, right? And the line of the Democratic Party platform has no reference to it, of course. And, Joe Biden has said explicitly he does not support defunding the police. He has said he does support some reform efforts, certainly. But, that catchphrase is being used, I think, to scare a heck of a lot of, older white suburban Republican voters who, are inherently scared anyway, I think. So this plays into some of their fears. And additionally, some on the left have called for free health care for undocumented immigrants, but Biden has not. And this is coming from an NBC kind of fact checker, Adam Edelman from NBC News. So Biden supports allowing undocumented immigrants to get some Affordable Care Act coverage to Dreamers, working with Congress to lift the 5-year waiting period for Medicaid and children's health insurance program eligibility for low-income, lawfully present immigrants. So yeah, there's nowhere in the Democratic platform that says the things that Mitch says Democrats want to do. And again, fear and a grievance-based fear of more free stuff. That is what Mitch is pitching, right? He's not right. He's not factual. What's more surprising is that after 36 years, that is all he has to run on. Seriously, where's the beef? Right? Remember that one? Anyone remember that one?
See what you did there, Aaron. I see what you did there.
Thank you, Nate. All right, so that is Mitch in the news. I hope we all learned a little something. Basically, don't trust Republicans. They're just in, full-on campaign mode, which means lie to you constantly and feed you fear, feed you propaganda. But speaking of, we're bringing now some actual facts, factual, informative. Doug Price is coming up with following Mitch's money.
I would certainly be in favor of allowing states to use the bankruptcy route.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank our oldest grandson, Jacob, who's been doing research for me on the last couple of segments of Following Mitch's Money. I want to provide a clear delineation between Mitch for corporations and money and Mitch for the common folk and we the people. If you have listened to a previous presentation, you know these two things. Mitch has said the way to win elections is money. And we've also learned that it takes a donation level of at least $25,000 in order to get in to see Mitch. So why do corporations provide funds for legislators and lobby Congress? Obviously, to them, this is a cost of doing business, and the payback is legislation for those who provide money to our Mitch and other politicians. The Blackstone Group is a perfect example of how business is done in Washington. It is an American multinational private equity alternative investment management and financial services firm based in New York City. Its tentacles, though, are far-reaching. Just recently, it completed the purchase of Ancestry. Its tentacles extend to many politicians, including our Senator Moscow Mitch. The Blackstone Group has donated $30 million to the Senate Leadership Fund. As a Senate Majority Leader, Mitch certainly has a say to who these funds are distributed to. Blackstone has donated close to $300,000 individually to Mitch. I would bet that the CEO, Schwartzman, has Mitch's personal cell phone number. As noted in an article from everyvoice.org, McConnell's all-time #1 donor over the course of his career in the Senate is Blackstone. It's a company that has made big bets on coal over the years. Recently, it's launched Blackstone Energy Partners 2, which has raised $4.5 billion for investments in the energy sector. I think this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us, C.E. Schwartzman told the Business Standard. It's going to be one of the best opportunities we've had in many, many years. In the summer of 2014, as his highly contested election was approaching, McConnell was caught on tape telling a group of high-level donors gathered at a strategy conference sponsored by the mega donor Koch brothers that if elected, he would go after the Environmental Protection Agency by placing riders on spending bills. That was just a few years ago. Now let me tie this into Mitch's current and continuing disregard of the common folk. I'm quoting from an article in The Atlantic. States need help. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell does not want to provide it. On the Hugh Hewitt Show on April 23rd, he proposed another idea. Instead of more federal aid, states should cut their spending by declaring bankruptcy. This is his quote. I would certainly be in favor of allowing states to use the bankruptcy route. It saves some cities and there's no good reason for it not to be available. My guess is their first choice would be for the federal government to borrow money from future generations to send it down to them now so they do not have to do that. That's not something I'm going to be in favor of. He expanded on the state bankruptcy concept later that day in a phone interview with Fox News' Bill Hemmer. We are not interested in solving their pension problems with them. We're not interested in rescuing them from bad decisions they've made in the past. We're not going to let them take advantage of this pandemic to solve a lot of problems that they created for themselves with bad decisions in the past. Blackstone and millions of dollars to Mitch versus the common folk and we the people, who is going to win that battle? Isn't it refreshing to be lectured by someone who has been on the public dole essentially his whole life? Someone who makes almost $200,000 per year, yet refuses to consider raising the federal minimum wage. The House passed the HEROES bill over 3 months ago, and that would have included funding for state city governments across the U.S. Mitch was happy to provide trillions of dollars for big business through an earlier stimulus package. His father-in-law's business obtained funds from the Payroll Protection Program. Wonder why he just didn't tell his father-in-law to file bankruptcy, along with the hundreds of businesses that obtained money from the government. Would this have anything to do with businesses being able to afford the buy-in? Mitch did not allow the Senate to opine on this bill. In the last couple of weeks, he did propose the Senate Hills bill, and this bill did not provide any funding for states. I guess the states do not need help in the pandemic. During the 2020 election cycle, Blackstone contributed almost $32 million to politicians. That amount is the third highest spent by any company. During 2019, Blackstone spent over $3.6 million in lobbying. This firm has contributed over $64 million in politicians and an additional $34 million in lobbying. Again, these funds help buy a seat at the table. If you want to meet with Mitch, then bring at least $25,000 to the table and try to compete with the $64 million. The common folk continue to be forgotten by Mitch. Mitch wants states to declare bankruptcy. Mitch passes laws that help corporations who provide him more money to win elections and remain in power. Mitch wants to get rid of Social Security. Mitch is now making the rounds in Kentucky during the pandemic, during a time when legislation is needed to help the Americans who work hard every day and are just barely making it. He is going around the state handing out your money, to encourage you to vote for him again. Isn't 36 years enough of this? It is time. Now is the time to ditch Mitch on November 3rd, 2020.
Make your money and go. Make your money and go. Take your money and go. Take your money and go. Take your money and go.
This partisan impeachment will end today.
Thank you so much, Doug. That, again, incredibly informative, doing the research, bringing the facts. This ain't the RNC, folks. We bring facts every single week, and you can bank on Doug's facts and Doug's research. And, of course, it's all about what Mitch is banking on, which is us not paying attention and us not understanding that his corporate agenda cuts us out. So speaking of, what we're going to do right now is our call to action. So let's hold Mitch accountable, shall we, people? This is not just a, hey, come on and stream some internet talking heads. This is a demonstration. This is us actually getting active, us demanding better of our sitting senator, right? So let's do something about that. Where is Mitch? We've got 1 million people a month making new unemployment claims. We've got locally eviction proceedings are starting up again. It is critically important that Washington, D.C. step up, but there's been no sign of life from the Grim Reaper. Despite the fact the House passed the HEROES Act 3 months ago, Mitch failed to get the Senate to do anything useful. You've heard us talk about this. You've heard us talk about, the HEROES Act and how critical that is. But instead of, Mitch meeting the House halfway or doing anything to pass new resources for our nation, he sent everyone home for a vacation. He's spending his vacation doing his tour of the state, dropping off checks, claiming credit for every cent the CARES Act delivered to Kentucky, even though he opposed the provisions he's taking advantage of, right? If you remember, his proposals for the CARES Act were just a mountain of money to corporations. He wasn't going to do anything for actual people. So here's where you come in. Take to the Facebook, take to Twitter, go to respond to any and all of his posts with the simple, where is Mitch? Fill in the rest however you like. Mention the shuttered small businesses, the schools struggling to reopen, the unemployment numbers, the testing. What we're seeing right now, I think, is there's a big push to ratchet down the testing. I think that is likely because as schools are coming back, the colleges especially, they're going to do a lot more testing. So I think it just underscores that once again, we do not have the testing capacity that we need. We don't have the 24-hour, immediate rapid response tests. Where is all that? How come Mitch, the most powerful senator in Washington, D.C., has not been able to deliver any of this? So go ahead, make a ruckus. Go on the internet, go on Mitch's Facebook page, on his Twitter page. What is the use of having the most powerful senator in Washington? He does not actually care about real people. So that's what we're doing. When when the chips are down for so many folks across our Commonwealth, Mitch has disappeared. So let's just put that out there. Where is he? All right, that's the call to action. Now go do something. Maybe not right now. Don't do it right now, because actually right now we've got something really exciting for you. Right now we are bringing on David Litt, who is the author of Democracy in One Book or Less. Right here. It's on sale right now. And his previous work, Thanks Obama, My Hopey Changey White House Years, was a bestseller. And yes, he actually did work at the White House. He was a speechwriter for Valerie Jarrett, for Chief of Staff Bill Daley, and ultimately the president himself, writing 4 correspondence dinner speeches, earning him the title of Obama's Comic Muse. I don't know if they have that on business cards, but that is a pretty awesome title, or a good way to be known. He's also been the lead DC writer for Funny or Die, written for McSweeney's, and currently writes for The Atlantic. So David Litt, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we got a few questions for you. This is a great book. I am really a fan of this book. It is deep yet humorous dive into what is wrong with the fundamentals of our democracy, specifically a lot on the voting process and what. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to ask you the first question. I skipped right over it. What does your protest sign say today, David?
What does my protest sign say today? I think it says the same thing today that it's been saying for a long time now, which is, it depends. If you go wordy, I would say, is this the best we can do, right? Like, that's, I think, the question that is just every day I wake up being like, is this as good as it gets, really? Or if I want to be concise about it, just say enough. Like, this is, and the one thing I agreed with Trump wholeheartedly on when his speech at the RNC, he said, Americans are exhausted. And I'm like, well, this American agrees with that. I don't, the only way out of that exhaustion is we may not agree on the solution, but it's unrelenting, and hopefully we can bring an end to it soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. 70 minutes, a 70-minute speech. Hopefully there's something that everyone could agree in 70 minutes of talking, but yeah, exhausted. Absolutely true. So this great book, what really led you to write it? Why, how come you decided the time was right for Democracy in One Book or Less?
This was an idea I started to have when I was working in the Obama White House, but it really crystallized during the Trump presidency. And it's that over and over again on all of these issues, whether it's gun violence or the environment or how we respond to COVID, Americans actually are in pretty broad agreement. And we don't all agree on everything, but most of us agree about the way forward. And yet, despite all of that, our government, our democratically elected representatives, keep doing the opposite of what the vast majority of American people want. And I had this realization that I studied American history in college. I worked at the White House. I know all the words to Schoolhouse Rock. And yet I couldn't really explain how our democracy actually works, how our system of government really works, and why it seems to not work very well. So I started learning about it. I started digging into it. And then I wanted to write about that for someone like me, because if a book is like too thick and too dense, I am not going to finish it, even if it's very important. So this is a book about why our system of government isn't working, but one for someone like me that even I could get through.
That's awesome. Next question, Kimberly.
Well, I'd like to know, in reading the book, I noticed that Mitch McConnell is mentioned quite frequently, actually, and more than Trump. Why did you feel like Mitch McConnell was so important to this story about democracy?
Well, I think when you look at the last 40 years, and to me, this is really a book about how democracy has changed within my lifetime. I'm 33. Mitch McConnell's Senate career, as you all know, started 35 years ago, 36. So Mitch McConnell's Senate lifetime and my lifetime are roughly the same. And during that time, democracy has changed a tremendous amount. In almost every way, our system of representative government is less representative than it used to be. It's very representative for a handful of extremely powerful people, but for the majority of Americans, if you're watching this, you have less political power than you would have 30 years ago. And lots of people and trends are responsible for that, but no one is more responsible than Mitch McConnell. And I don't say that entirely in an angry way. I think that what your senior senator had was a very cunning insight into the political process, which was he realized early on, before many of the rest of us did, that in politics, the players write the rules. And so for the last several decades, while many of us were focused on the players on the field, who's giving what speech, which bill is working its way through Congress, Mitch McConnell was behind the scenes, quietly rewriting the rule book. And he's been very, very successful. If it had not been for his tremendous success, I don't think we would have had Trump in the first place. So to me, Mitch McConnell and Trump are actually similar figures, but Mitch McConnell is much smarter and he's a much more consequential figure in American history.
So one of the themes of your book, Democracy in One Book or Less, on sale at a local indie bookstore near you, is how little lawmakers act on behalf of the voters that they represent. And so, we're the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. We're interested in knowing, how does Mitch fit into that theme?
So I want to be, first of all, very clear about something, because I'm not a cynic about politics at all. A lot of politicians are working incredibly hard to deliver for their constituents, including the president I worked for, but also tons of people in Congress and local office right now. Governors are doing the best they can, in some states, on COVID, despite having no federal support. The problem with American politics today isn't that you don't have any good politicians. It's that the people trying to deliver for their constituents are fighting an uphill battle, and the people trying to deliver just for their donors or for a couple of small special interests are kind of running downhill. They have it easy. And the reason for that over and over again comes back to McConnell in a few different ways. Number one, he was very early to recognize the value of restricting voting rights to the emerging Republican Party. So one of his first big policy stands was not on healthcare or foreign policy or these other statesman-like issues. He took a stand against what we call motor voter, right? The ability to register at the DMV. He said, if you can register at the DMV, it's going to lead to huge fraud all over America. I mean, this might sound familiar. Well, of course, motor voter passed. There was no fraud, but he hasn't stopped pounding that drum because he recognizes that the fewer people vote, the better his chances are. And then there's a few other ways as well, but I'm just going to go through two of them. One of them is campaign finance. Mitch McConnell, I think, is probably our nation's leading expert, certainly among politicians, on campaign finance law, which is not a very interesting kind of, little kids don't grow up thinking, I want to go to the Senate so I can learn about campaign finance law. But if you care about who wins elections, campaign finance law is really important. And so Mitch McConnell has systematically broken down our campaign finance law until it's basically non-existent. And what's fascinating is when he was about my age, when he was 31, he published an op-ed in the local Louisville paper saying, we need stronger campaign finance laws. But it was as the tides turned and campaign finance laws hurt Republicans rather than help them, he completely changed his tune. And then finally, the Senate filibuster and the importance of what Mitch McConnell has done with it can't be overstated. So before Mitch McConnell was minority leader, there was a filibuster in the Senate. It was used, some critics would say it was used too frequently to kill bills, even bills that had a majority support. But what Mitch McConnell did was he basically changed the nature of the Senate filibuster to say, this is no longer just something that we use occasionally. This is something that it now takes 60 Senate votes to pass a bill through the Senate on just about everything. And he's worked a few exceptions in, like judges that are helping him out. But overall, what you're seeing is, and actually I just want to be very clear to fact check myself here, on Supreme Court judges, that was his change. On lower court judges was Harry Reid before that. But what you're seeing is the new filibuster makes it almost impossible for laws to get through. And that's kind of a long answer, but I think that's a testament to how involved Mitch McConnell has been in eroding every single part of our democratic process.
It is staggering the amount of impact the man has had, and that the long game that he has played in terms of building power and ensuring a party which is inherent. The demographics are against the Republican Party, right? The demographics are such that really the only way they can continue to win elections in large states and across the nation is if they keep people from voting. And there's just some chilling examples that you go into your book, like how hard it is to register voters in Texas. That is just eye-opening, the amount of hurdles they put in front of people. And it's just, it's quite an impressive book. It's really informative. I hope people check it out. But as we're watching this live stream, we've got a pretty specific demographic, right, David? We have people who really want to keep Mitch McConnell from, another term in the Senate. 6 more years. Mitch, please. We definitely need to get rid of him. And we'd love to hear your advice. As somebody who's worked in politics at the national level, who's paid really close attention, what advice could you give this group, folks who are just desperate to send Mitch into retirement?
I think it's extraordinary. When you look at Mitch McConnell as a national political figure, he's the least popular senator, possibly the least popular politician in the country. I mean, I went to Louisville to sort of visit some of Mitch McConnell's old haunts for my book. And I would talk to, Uber drivers, just people, bartenders. This was back when you could go into a bar. And everyone, including people who are really conservative, don't like Mitch McConnell. So I think that's part of the thing that McConnell understands is that the new politics doesn't actually matter if people hate you. They just have to hate the other person more. And I think part of that is going to be making the case that fundamentally, a lot of, you get to 35%, I would assume, by getting people who are excited about having a Democrat win that seat. But then you also need to have people say, it's just time for a change, right? This is not just a matter of replacing one set of policies with another. It's a matter of replacing somebody who has devoted his career to a national political party, but has time after time failed to deliver for the people who he actually represents. And I think that's when you look at McConnell's career, because we're here on something dedicated to not liking Mitch McConnell, talking about how important he is. I think that's what a lot of politicians dream of. Even the people who don't like them admit that they've made huge changes. But it's really important to recognize that the big changes that Mitch McConnell has made to America have not been made on behalf of people living in Kentucky. They have not been made on behalf of people living throughout the United States. They've only benefited a very small group of people. And by the way, most of those people are not living in Kentucky. Those are big donors outside the state. So I think I'm not a Kentucky strategist, and all politics is local. But I do think you have a national political figure who has time and time again prioritized the interests of a handful of out-of-state donors over the interests of the people who he is supposed to be fighting for every day. And, as you were pointing out, nothing is dramatizing that quite like the crises that we're facing in this moment, where McConnell is just not interested. He and Trump, it's another thing they have in common. They've just checked out. They're not bothering to fight this crisis. And, I think it's a new low, even for someone who's hit a lot of lows during his career.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. Is there any final questions, opportunity, Nate or Kimberly, any final questions you wanted to ask?
I think Kimberly has a question. I've got one too.
Okay. This is so great listening to this. Someone that has come in, has done the legwork, research to find out exactly who Mitch McConnell is. So I'm going to ask you basically a personal opinion from you. Hopefully you can answer. In your mind, what exactly needs to happen to get rid of Mitch McConnell? What needs to happen? What do we need to do in the few days that we have left to get rid of Mitch McConnell?
So I think there's a couple of different things if you're watching this. And number one is just the basics, right? Donating money if you can. It's harder to knock on doors these days, but you can text, you can phone bank, you can do all this stuff. If you're in Kentucky, which you all are, you can talk to your neighbors and your friends. A huge challenge for Kentucky voters is getting to the polls, but a huge challenge for Kentuckians in general and for politicians who want to stand up to McConnell is to connect some of these movements. So we're seeing a movement for justice for, say, James Blake or George Floyd or Breonna Taylor. But then we also need to make that connection to say, if you're marching and you care about social justice in that way, then you have to turn that into a vote. And many people, I want to be very clear, get that already. But if you get even just a few more people to understand that and make that connection, that's a huge difference. So you add all of those things up. And then finally, the strange thing about political campaigns is even 60 some odd days out, they're hard to predict. So you put yourself in the best possible position, and then you keep making that case and you wait and hope it will break through. And I believe it will, because the stakes are so high. And the last thing I will say is, I think most of us probably shouldn't use phrases like "get rid of Mitch McConnell" in most of the time, because the election is going to be decided by people who are not sure how they feel. To get over the top in Kentucky. So some of it is going to be a matter of reaching out to people who already don't like Mitch McConnell and want to get rid of him. But some of it's going to be a matter of saying, maybe you voted for him the last time. Maybe you voted for him the last 5 times. But isn't it time for someone new? And I think there's 2 different types of tones and approaches that both have to be employed.
Awesome. Nate, final question?
No, that I had a copywriting question and you just completely answered it. So Thank you.
All right. So then my bonus question, David. So somebody called you Obama's comic muse, and in your time writing the correspondence dinner or just other speeches for the president, what was your favorite joke that you gave President Obama?
So there are a bunch that I liked. All of these jokes, I'm just very clear about this. They don't age that well because they're all about controversies, like from 2011 or 2012. And the correspondence dinner, was fun about it was that it really was a team effort. So we would pitch, different people would pitch different jokes. So a lot of my favorite ones were jokes that I didn't write, but someone else pitched and I, worked into the script. I think one of my favorites that I wrote or that I got to work on was bringing Keegan-Michael Key, who is the actor who played Luther, Obama's anger translator. So he came to the correspondence dinner and he anger translated for President Obama. And that was really fun just because I got to be in the rehearsal of this. And so the conceit was, here's this guy yelling about everything that they're putting Obama through, that the country's putting Obama through. And every time Keegan would say a line, the president would just lose it. I mean, he just couldn't stop laughing the whole time. So I was sitting there in the rehearsal kind of watching them, do work back and forth. And I was like, is this actually my life? This is crazy. But it was so much fun. And so so once in a lifetime moment to be part of that.
That's awesome. Oh, and then one last question before we let you go. Were you involved with the correspondence dinner that roasted Trump?
I was very, very tangentially involved. I just started at the White House, so I did not write any of the jokes that people think were, the reason that Trump ran for president. Although I will say, I don't think that's the reason he ran for president. And I do wish I had written those jokes because they were really funny. But no, whether it's blame or credit, I was not involved in that particular handful.
Oh no, and clearly he had talked about running for president before that.
Yeah.
But I think we cannot ignore some motivating factors there. That was
I think it's possible because I do think that what he may have felt was not like I'm going to get back at Obama, but I do think there may have been a sense of look how much everybody loves this guy, right? Here's somebody, attacking a political opponent, and everyone, all these elites in this room love him. And that's all Trump's ever wanted. He doesn't care about ordinary people, but he cares about journalists. He cares about celebrities. He cares about politicians. And I think he may have been misguided and thought, if I'm behind the podium, everyone's going to love me. Well, it turns out that does not happen if you're not a good president. In fact, it doesn't usually happen even if you are a good president, but particularly not in this particular time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Thanks again for writing the book. I'm going to encourage everyone to buy it from their local bookstore. Don't give Jeff Bezos any extra money. He's got plenty. Good luck with all your future writing. I'm going to be paying close attention to the Atlantic or wherever it turns up. But have a great night. Sure. Yeah, and I think we actually have a clip of David. If you want a little more David.
This is a guide to shattering Mitch McConnell's dreams within Mitch McConnell's lifetime. It's called Democracy in One Book or Less, and it comes out today, and I hope you buy it, but more than that, I hope you read it. And I just wanted to quickly explain why I think that is.
Right,
I wrote this book because on issue after issue, gun violence, climate change, the economy, healthcare, policing, COVID, Americans are asking for one set of things from our leaders, and our leaders, our government, they keep doing the opposite of what we want. How is that possible in a democracy? Well, it turns out within my lifetime, Mitch McConnell and his friends have systematically eroded our representative government and made it work for just a handful of people and taken power away from everyone else. So this is a fun book, actually. It's got Polish vampires. It's got roommate drama at the Constitutional Convention. But really, it's the story of how we, the people, lost our power and how we can get it back. It all comes down to the thing that got me into politics in the first place. People who love this country can change it. So I hope you'll check it out.
All right. Thank you again, David Litt. What a fantastic and fun interview. Check out that book. So big campaign update. Our big campaign right now is 5K for KY. We're looking to register new voters. As we just heard from David, it's critically important we do the work to get that, to get that voting base up. We need new voters, folks who, haven't, for whatever reason, taken advantage of the opportunity to become a voter because, the roadblocks that are out there. If you usually register at the DMV, DMVs have been closed. People are not going to the DMV. So we need to work extra hard to get people registered. And that's what we're doing with our 5K for KY. We have, I think, about 30 activists volunteering right now to send out mailings to get folks to register to vote. We really could use another 10 volunteers to make sure we get to that 5,000 potential new voter threshold that we set ourselves, that goal for ourselves. Could you help? Could you please help? Just go right now, go to the link, sign up. It's super easy to do. You can do it while you're, binge watching whatever on Netflix you're watching, or do it every Monday night when you're hanging out with us. You can put these mailings together. Super quick, super easy, and super important. All right, Nate, what do we got?
We've got weekly visibility events. Woo! We're starting to demonstrate again, folks, for real. So please join us on Saturday, September 12th, 3 p.m. at Harrodsburg Road and Corporate Drive. We'll have new big banners to hold up, and in keeping with the ethic of actually, caring about the well-being of our fellow Kentuckians, this is going to be a socially distant and masked, but otherwise very, very visible demonstration. So bring your anti-Mitch sign, bring your chanting and singing voice, and bring your beautiful smile. But we'll only be able to see it because your eyes will be smiling. But still, join your friends here at the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee in 2 Saturdays from now, September 12th, 3 p.m. at the corner of Harrodsburg Road and Corporate Drive in Lexington, and show Kentucky that we need Mitch to retire once and for all.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate. And then Kimberly, tell us about next week's show.
Yes, and next week's show will be an almost live stream. We'll have a gun sense show. We've got a new interview with Kathy Hobart Spicer, and she's with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Yes, and Miss Ella McCutcheon from the Frankfurt High School chapter of Students Demand Action, as well as a few past favorites. Our interview with my congressman, whom I love so much, John R. Yarmouth, and Doug's following Mitch's NRA money. Well worth your time on Labor Day. So if your socially distant barbecue is wrapped up by 7 p.m. Eastern time, why don't you come on over and join us on the almost live stream of MMRC.
Awesome. That sounds like a good way to spend Labor Day. Who doesn't want to hear from John? I hate the way you just bragged about your congressman, we would love it if John Yarmouth could be our congressman, really. But November 4th, when we found out that Josh Hicks is going to be our congressman here in Lexington, then we can have a little bit of a bragging rights. You think, we'll see what happens.
I don't know. I'm going to tell, I actually will be talking to Congressman John Yarmouth at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I will tell him, Aaron, that you are jealous.
So jealous. I love that.
Me too. I'm jealous too. I'm jealous too.
I see it in your eyes.
Although my favorite Yarmouth moment was when AOC thought he was a Republican and made fun of him. But no, he is fantastic, and I am absolutely jealous. All right, so hey, folks, we're closing out the live stream. It's been under an hour, so we're always excited when we bring it in under an hour because we have so much, and we do tend to go long. But so just to use this final moments, please help us. Please help us get bigger. Please help us talk to more people. We've got that match that's out there, right? So if you make a donation, we're going to get that money matched. We have a $500 challenge donation. So let's get to $500. It all adds up, certainly. But we want to get to at least 2,000 likes on Facebook, which it really feels, it's a little bit sad that we're asking for 2,000 likes. I mean, come on, people. What we're doing here is important. I think it's done fairly well. I think it's informative. Share it with your friends. People that aren't really that psyched about Mitch McConnell. Get them on our side. Just invite them right now. Go to our Facebook page. You're there right now if you're watching this, and you can just click on the invite friends. Just keep doing it. All of them, all your friends. All your friends. I don't want your crazy mother-in-law, but anyone who is politically on our side, get them on our page so we can tell them what's what. So big thanks to Ken and Couchfire Media for making our live stream look so good. And if you have not listened to it yet, you need to listen. You just heard earlier in the show, Nate doing a little bit of singing for us. Wasn't that good? You got to hear Mitch, please. It is definitely the political hit of the summer. I'm going to use air quotes around hit But I think it's a great song, and it's informative while also inspiring us to keep at it and looking to retire Mitch. So thanks again, folks. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Kimberly and Nate, oh my gosh, it's a pleasure to do this with you guys every Monday night. So everyone, have a fantastic week, okay?
Love you all.